Hey everybody, it's Keith with L1 Automotive. How we doing today? So this is technically the first What You're Working On Wednesday, but it's on a Thursday, of course. But you know, I had a desktop failure yesterday, so that was horrendous. Keith says a 6.7, Keith from New Level Auto says, a 6.7 power stroke and you won't help. Well, Keith, what's the problem with the power stroke? Because I actually do, unfortunately, work on quite a few of those here in Okie, here out in Oklahoma. Got quite a few people in here today, so this is, like I told everybody, once we met my goal on Patreon, we would go to 2 streams a week, and this is where we're at. So today's stream, which will normally be on Wednesday from here on out, as long as we can stay above this goal, will be happening on Wednesday as long as I don't have any more desktop failures. That was unfortunate. Sandra says, use the ATG book, Keith. And she's talking to DeFazio, who's working on a 6.7 power stroke. So this will be a little different than normal. I'm going to repeat a lot of what's said in the chat so people watching afterwards can pay attention to it. But let's see. The main purpose of these Wednesday chats will be kind of to find out what you guys are working on in the shops or out there, and then see if I can help any, or if I can offer a secondary point of view, really. But, so what I did today, just to kind of break the ice a little bit until somebody comes up with something, and also I've got an individual, Alex, who's working on a Ford. He's doing a programming on FJDS. He's having some network communication issues when it's originally identifying the module. So he's going to do an attempt at tricking it into a blank module programming. But today I had a Dodge, 2009 Dodge Charger, that I was called for to program a key. I get to this unnamed shop, put the key into the wireless ignition node module, turn the key to the on position, or the phobic style key that goes in there, not actual metal key. The cluster didn't light up. So that was my first indication that most likely it was not the key. Not too into diesels though, right, Perkins? Kuba, I am not super into diesels, but I have to work on a bunch of them. I do get to see a bunch of them. And when it comes to Fords, I've got a really good friend of mine who I used to work with in the shop. And he is a asset graduate from Ford, the Ford Asset graduate. He's the Ford Asset program. He's a graduate from that program. And he was their senior master diesel technician at a local dealer. And he is a really good diesel technician. Drives a 6.0 every day, and he's my 6.0, 6.4, 6.7 guy. I mean, he's all about 7.3s too, but he is probably one of the most intelligent individuals I've ever spoke with about 6.0, 6.4, and 6.7. He really understands the systems, how they're designed, and has a really good understanding of how to help me figure them out. Brian says he's got a 2012 Ford Edge Lean Runner. So I guess you've got some 171 and 174 codes, Brian? That's what I'm assuming. We can roll through that one. But on this Charger, so after the dash didn't come up, my first indication is most likely the wireless ignition node or the ignition switch, which also acts as the transmitter for the security system as well. It's kind of a Mercedes style part, much like an EIS or an EZS on a Mercedes. Most likely that's at fault. Even if you take an unprogrammed key, put it into this wireless ignition node and turn the key to the on position, you will get the cluster lights to come on and everything. You'll just have a theft light because the key isn't learned and it's got a skim error. So it was a pretty simple setup since I understand that's how the system works. Apparently, my assumption is that whoever was working on it in the shop is not familiar with the system. So that's something I always want to preach to you guys, is be familiar with the system. Oh, hey, PJ's in here. The Voltage Drop Diagnostics channel is PJ Walters, so everybody say hi to him. Check out his channel. But him not understanding the system was a big problem. So whoever worked on it. So all I had to do was check power, ground, and communication to the wind module, which communication wasn't a big deal, but I wanted to check it anyways to make sure there was no faults. I was actually able to communicate with the module, but it simply wouldn't turn on. So it's probably internally broke. I offered them the option of repair if they wanted to remove the unit and if the customer had the time to wait. But it just, it kind of depends what they want to do with this particular vehicle. So, hey, Angel. So that was kind of my deal with that one today. That was my second call this morning. First call this morning was just a software update on a 2013 Dodge with a 6.7 for some injector fault. I was requested to do a software update. I didn't diagnose the vehicle. I didn't do a verification afterwards. I just made sure that my job was complete. I did the PCM software update and then ran any necessary routines afterwards, which not much to do on a 6.7 when you're done doing just a software update. Peekaboo says, yesterday had a VW at the high beams, and then he left it at that. So, Brian said that, yes, that's what's... So he's got P0171 and 174, I assume. Says he just hooked up to another one that's running rich. He said, what's the chance? So, Brian, I assume you probably already figured it out, right? Did it end up being, is it a vacuum leak, or what have you looked at on fuel trims? And to just explain to people what my process is for this, if I've got P0171, you want to look at set criteria and then see if it's giving the actual, if it actually has a lean running condition. So you want to look at set criteria of the DTCs. You want to look at first, after you verify the concern that the codes are there, that maybe see if it is actually running lean. But then you want to check any service bulletins, special service messages, rapid response transmittals, preliminary information reports, whatever manufacturers want to call them, because they're not just all TSBs. So, Corey at SNA says, is it Sunday already? No, Corey, we're going to start doing a Wednesday and a Sunday video. 2 a week now is where we're at. But I had some computer problems, so yesterday I was down, desktop was down, was way behind on paperwork. So I've been working on that yesterday once I got the PC back up and running. So, by the way, it was a bad stick of DDR3 RAM. That unfortunately was the problem. Alright, trying to keep up with everyone's stories and go through. But anyways, after I would check all the special service messages and TSBs, then I would verify that the engine actually has the lean running condition, and then from there we're going to use fuel trims to give ourselves a diagnostic path to go. But hey, Misfit Mechanics here. Let's see. Peekaboo says, because he was dealing with a VW that had high beams that wouldn't work. He said he put a CEM module in it a while ago. Somehow the coding was incorrect and didn't have the high beams weren't enabled. I had a really fun Mercedes-Benz that the EIS ignition switch was coded incorrectly. I think somebody had replaced it or been messing around with the coding, and got a couple of the modules turned off in the bus messages. And then because of that, it wasn't sending the turn-off signals over the CAN lines because there were 3 networks in the car. All 3 networks had a module that was staying on. So what was really weird was that it had a draw was the reason it came in. Josh says, you going to do it during SMA's What's Up Wednesday? Absolutely not. If I want anyone to show up to this, I won't do it at the same time as Eric. That would be a horrible idea. It just happens to be a good day for me because it's the middle of the week. Anyways, this Mercedes had a draw. I determined there were three 3 or 4 modules that were drawing, and they were all on different networks. The draw was in the front SAM, which is, Mercedes calls them a signal acquisition module, a SAM, but it's actually a fuse box. It's just like a TIPM or a IPDM. It's a smart fuse box. So the only thing that was controlling all these individual modules, there were no inputs that were keeping them on. It was literally they weren't being told to go to sleep over the network, and I only found it almost by accident messing with it. Determined that in the bus messages of the EIS, the modules were turned off. They were listed as not present on the car, so the EIS, acting as the gateway, never gave the turn-off messages to the modules. It's pretty messed up. I was able to use the iScan WT2 to recode the bus messaging to appropriately identify which modules were present and not present. Also still had a bad overhead control module. Which is really common to cause a draw on Mercedes, but usually not up in the 1.8 amp range. Usually an overhead control module, when it stays alive, will pull somewhere between like 3 and 500 milliamps. .401 Tech Help says, how much is involved in a head job on an 01 Acura CL 3.2? Did test fluid turned yellow? How many hours? Ooh, I would look up your service information. If you don't have any service information for 401, you need to look at getting some, because this is a rough career to be in with no service information. At least look at AllData or Identifix or Mitchell. Those all have some kind of labor times listed for that stuff. Booster hose on the lean one, looking at purge valve on the rich runner. Yeah, pretty common. Most of those Bosch style purge valves go bad. That's Brian was talking about his forge with the 171, 174 codes and a couple others. Oh yeah, hey Power. Dylan King says, hi Keith and subscribers. Zib187 says, is that an acoustic guitar behind you? Yes. It's a J. Tercer acoustic electric. Dylan says, I did send you an email. Did I send my response back? I thought I did. I apologize if I didn't. Excuse me. It says draft. Oh, I didn't finish typing it. I was driving. Sorry, Dylan. I will send you, as soon as I get off the stream, I'll finish my email to you and I'll send it to you, Dylan. Yes, I can help you out with that. Lance Cater says, how many hours on the bins? So, the bin story is actually a really, really long story. Basically, I was called to code an SRS module for the vehicle. I wasn't called. This is when I was working at a shop. And another tech that was working on it, and this other tech is kind of the reason why I left that shop. And this car was one of the major factors with this. I told this tech over and over and over again not to use a test light to do his Mercedes draw test. He was pulling the negative battery cable, putting his test light in between, and pulling fuses until the draw went away. What he was unable to tell was how big the draw was. This is what's important about measuring. There you go, Tommy. I'll let your message go through. What's important about doing a draw test, you want to be able to measure how much the draw is, and then from that point, you want to be able to isolate what circuits have that draw. So his problem was because there's multiple draws in his car, what he had done was taken the negative battery cable, put his test light in between, essentially completing the circuit, and then pulling fuses till test light went out. What he was unable to tell was as he pulled some of the fuses, the test light got dimmer and dimmer. And then when he pulled the SRS module fuse, the test light went out. He had then left the other fuses out, put the fuse back in for the SRS module, went to the SRS module, then he cut the power wire to the SRS module and then said, it needs an SRS module. So he wasn't able to supply me with what the total draw was beforehand or anything. So he goes on vacation, so I have to code this module. So this Mercedes-Benz $800 SRS module comes in. I physically install the module. and then I go to code it, and just out of curiosity, before I get done, I go ahead and check for a draw. I'm just like, you know what? I know this isn't the problem because his test method is not sound. I know he missed something. I've never done an SRS module in a Mercedes for a draw. I've not seen this. I said most likely it's a seat module that's being left on, was my thought, because the power seat modules are really bad about failing. So, anyways, that was my assumption, was that was the problem, and I was right. It had like 1.8 amps on it, 1800 milliamps. So I just stopped, pulled the battery cable, let the car set during the capacitors, pull both battery cables. Anyways, it was a W203 chassis, like a C240 or something, older, like a 2003 or 4. So I let it set, let the capacitor drain, let the airbag system get safe, undo the SRS module, put the old SRS module in, turn the car back on, power up the system again, then put it to sleep, lock the doors, articulate the doors and latches so they appear to be off. Double check system, same exact draw, 1.8 amps, 1800 milliamps. So at that point I knew it wasn't a problem. Then I had to go and request time to actually diagnose the vehicle, and then went through the whole entire rigmarole. I mean, I probably had 4 hours in this car by the time it was all said and done, between installation, then uninstalling and reinstalling the old module, then getting that, basically starting fresh, except for the fact he had torn the interior of the car apart to get this SRS module. So I don't know. I mean, this was like a really long story. It was kind of frustrating, and by the time it was all said and done, basically I was told by the owner that just because my test method ended with the correct result doesn't mean that the other technician wouldn't have eventually found the problem. Even though we had purchased a module that wasn't needed and couldn't be returned because it was an $800 module from Mercedes-Benz. Pico, you'd be correct. I'm not going to repeat that on the air, though. Angel, it's very frustrating working with someone who won't take advice. This individual is like 54 years old, so I couldn't tell him anything. He said he had been working on cars for 30 plus years, and he knew what he was doing. He literally said that to people's faces, even when you presented evidence that he should do maybe something a different way or follow service information. It's difficult to work with individuals that don't want to follow service information or don't want to keep up with technology. I mean, he was convinced, even when I asked him how many milliamps it took to run his test light, and he said it didn't matter. And I said, well, if your test light turns off, it's only under about 200 milliamps, which means it could still have a draw, which was the case, by the way. Once leaving the fuses out that he left out, and then doing the airbag module, even unplugging the airbag module, there was still 140 milliamp draw. Anyways. Kuba says, oh man, gotta love these type of customers. Well, he is a customer now. Put it that way. Not really. I mean, he's definitely not a coworker anymore. Let's see. But that was one of the most ridiculous things I had to go back behind someone and do, and I've dealt with a lot now. I mean, nowadays I don't really diagnose vehicles. I just install fuses for money now. Angel says, just because they've been doing it for 30 years doesn't mean they've been doing it good for 30 years. Right. Enron did what they were doing for a long time, too. That doesn't mean they were any good. I did smart off one time. I was quite a bit younger. Someone said, I've been working on cars for 25 years. And I smarted off me, and I was like, well, did you ever fix any of them? And about got the crap knocked out of me once. Right, that's what was important, was the testing and inspection to determine that is actually the fault. That was what was important. So, I don't know. It was frustrating. I don't want to beat up on the guy anymore. He's having some personal problems now anyways. Alright, so what else are we messing with today? Oh, left there, took a look at two. I have this car lot customer who has two Dodge Rams with the 5.7, 2010 and 2011. Yeah, yeah. I said that, and I was probably like 22 years old. And the guy said that, and I smarted off, and it almost ended in a fight because I was stupid. But yeah, Lance, that's. I usually tell them specifically I just install fuses for $140 an hour, but that doesn't always go over well with some people. They're like, wait, what? But it's the truth sometimes. Anyways, I've got this car lot, and he's got two really good parts changers, and he uses me for a lot of diagnosis, which is a good business decision if you ask me. And he said it's been saving him a ton of money, which is good. He's finally seen, he sees the benefit of using someone who tests and inspects to determine problems. One of his techs has actually started following Paul Danner, Scanner Danner's channel, and paid for his premium, so he's starting to learn quite a bit. He came over while I was working on one of the Dodges today and pointed out my Pico and knew what it was. And this is a guy that is just an R&R parts guy at a small little one-bay shop with one lift, or it's two bays, one lift. So these two guys working. So he's starting to learn quite a bit. He's starting to understand as I come by. I try to explain to him what I'm doing when I'm working on stuff. But anyways, so this guy bought these two Dodge Hemis with a Dodge 5.7s. Sorry, Ram with a 5.7. And both of them he bought specifically because they had dead misses, knowing that he was going to have to do cam and lifters on them. They've been pretty good money makers for him. A lot of other shops are afraid of them. He's got two really good R&R techs that do really good work. So he got both these trucks, 2010, 2011. The 2011 was a really nice truck, but it's got a lot of miles, like 214,000. I was in this truck today. If you got in this truck, you would swear that this thing had 60,000 miles or less. Lance Cater, real quick to go off subject, Lance Cater says that '05 Escape Pat's problem that he emailed me about wound up being 3 bad new dealer keys. Says he now has a VVDI Key Tool. So, Lance, I'm glad you figured that out. That's what was so hard to. It's difficult for me to help you diagnose those kinds of issues when we can't test the keys like I would normally do. You know, when someone gives me 3 keys, or when someone supplies their own keys for me to use or anything, my first thing is pop it in the VVDI and check it. Is it a good key? And it's unfortunate you dealt with that much trouble. Having 3 bad new dealer keys is a big problem. That'll really tear up a day or two of messing with it, because I would not have believed that if I didn't have a way to test them myself. But anyway, so these Dodges, he did a cam and lifter set on both of them, and both of them still have some weird misfire issues. So the blue one I looked at yesterday, and it ended up being cylinder 7 deactivation. Solenoid itself electrically was good, but mechanically wasn't functioning, and releasing it was clogged with something. I think it had some metal debris in it from the camshafts. So he put a solenoid in it, and then 2 days later, which was yesterday, had a cylinder 1 problem. So again, another cylinder deactivation. So we had a 1417 code and a 1411 code, which usually is just a failed valve lifter if you guys try to identifix that or something. But I was able to determine that the MDS solenoid, I could activate it randomly and get it to finally, I could bidirectionally control it and get it to actually close, and then the car would run fine. But anytime it would go into 4.8 mode, and the thing was, looking at the data at the moment that it happened, it was happening directly after a 4.8 activation. So MDS would activate and open the solenoid, collapse the lifter, and it was just staying closed and collapsing the lifter and not actually letting it deactivate. So I had to looking at freeze frame data and everything. That's what we came up with. So his techs pulled the MDS solenoids. He pulled all the other 3. They all looked pretty clean. All had a little bit of metal shavings here and there. So we did a couple engine flushes, replaced MDS solenoids. It was all good to go. So we're dealing with the black one, the 2010, is the same problem, I believe. So I've got to look at it. It'll be kind of interesting to find out how that goes. But Rudy says, will a bad O2 sensor on an F350, 351 make it run bad and misfire real bad? An upstream O2 sensor can definitely make it run bad, and then a downstream can skew your results quite a bit as well. I've had downstream O2 sensors skew front ones on Chrysler a lot, especially. It will run better at higher RPM, but wants to die at idle. That's very possible. We'd have to look at the data, Rudy. There's a lot of stuff to look at that point. Angel says, never worked on an MDS system, but will an amp clamp work in this situation, or is it mechanical? The answer to that is yes, an amp clamp will give you, it's an electronic solenoid that controls oil flow to a lifter galley that mechanically collapses, allows the lifter to collapse and deactivate the valves. So yes, an amp clamp will work, and yes, it's mechanical. So that's more like a, do you walk to work or just take your lunch? Jason Chavez says, hey Keith, is TBT doing anything before the TST training, like live stream? Yes, have a live stream coming up very soon, probably beginning of the week kind of thing. And then a lot of us will be at TST. You still live, or am I watching after effect? You tell me. Sorry, not trying to be smart about it. But yeah, I think we're going to try to have a couple special guests, maybe some individuals that we brought to, we paid their way to Vision, so we'd like to like to hear their thoughts of what they thought Vision was like to them. So yeah, we got TST coming up, and then October is AESWave's Super Saturday event. I'm trying to think if I'm going to anything between there. I can't remember if I have an event in between there. Also, if you're looking for some training, Eric Ziegler and Scott Schotten are both going to be down in Florida for a training event through Bryn Klein, Assured Auto Works. April 26th, I believe, single day event. They're both going to be there. So contact Bryn Klein on Facebook or Assured Auto Works. His information's up somewhere. If somebody has a link to that or something, if you want to put them on there, that'd be great. Yes, PJ. Sorry, it's a lag behind. I'm just now reading your comment, PJ, about doing a live stream Monday. I didn't know if we announced that or not, so I wanted to not give away the goose or whatever. Awesome, Jason. Yeah, we'll see you there. I'll be at TST. I'll actually be coming into New York on the 28th, and then not leaving till the 1st, so I'll be there for a bit. But you guys can kind of plan on that, showing up on Wednesdays. I haven't decided an exact time yet. I want to make sure it doesn't interfere with Eric's thing, because I won't have any viewers if Eric's doing his thing. So, if you guys want to just expect every Wednesday we do this, bring what you're working on, see if we can figure it out. Gearbox fault, O2 Jag X type. What kind of gearbox fault? So I'll give you guys a little heads up. It's difficult for me to help anyone with a concern if we don't have data to look at, if we don't have at least trouble codes or anything. Lance says, opinion on buying a micropod versus using J2534 with Chrysler software. It is very, very difficult for me to justify purchasing a micropod, a secure micropod, when 2010 and up vehicles can be used with a J2534 device as long as it meets the API 5.0. It's $50 for 3 days of YTech 2.0 access, and it can be done with a J2534. So I think going on into the future, it's going to be difficult to purchase a micropod. Yeah, Kuba, I wasn't sure either. I didn't know if it was publicly announced yet or not, but yeah. I guess we'll break the news now. Monday there'll be a TBT live stream. The micropod is really nice to use. I have not used the Ytech 2.0 with the J-Box very much. I haven't 4 times now. 4 times I've used it. But it's worked every time for me, no problem. And then I've used the micropod a lot with the actual Ytech 2.0, and it's been fantastic. It's a fantastic tool, it really is. 411 Tech Help says, just display on dash, no codes. So there are no, you've scanned with a you've used a diagnostic scanner that will talk to the transmission control module, and there are no codes stored in it, but there is a fault indicator on the dash. That's interesting. Darren Flounder says, Auto Diagnostics over here in the UK, any advice on key program without breaking the bank, as I don't do keys but want to get into it. I can't really give you an answer for a key programmer because I try not to use like an individual key programmer. I have a lot of factory scan tools, so that's what I use. But aftermarket wise, I do have a launch Diagun 4, which there should be a link in the description of this video. And then I've used an Autel to do them, but I don't have any actual like dedicated key programmers. The VVDI Key Tool does some functions for like cloning keys and reading transponder serial numbers and stuff like that. There's not I don't know. I haven't really used it to program a key to a car. Unfortunately, because I have a lot of OE diagnostic equipment, it's difficult for me to give you anyone recommendations on aftermarket key programming machines. I have used the Advanced Diagnostics T-Code Pro, and it seems to be one of the best all-around units, but it's not cheap. So that's my only concern with giving you any suggestions. Peekaboo says, has anyone messed around with pressure pulse sensors in the cooling system? My coworker and I have been, and we noticed on every vehicle there are pulses that sync with ignition. So I've done quite a bit of tests with pulse sensors in the cooling system. My buddy Brandon Steckler kind of sent me, we talked about it probably a year ago. He had a specific one he was working on. And, sorry, I lost my train of thought reading the comment. Anyways, and he had done that, so I started messing with it. I had an Equinox with a bad head gasket. It was pretty clear. I still have some waveforms from that. But I, too, have noticed that I do get a little bit of a pulse with each sync. But you have to remember that compression is going to physically move even metal a little bit. It's going to try to stretch the head bolts, all that kind of stuff. You're going to have pulses in the coolant with each one, but what you're looking for is the odd man out. Let's see. Yeah, Super Mario did do a video about it just recently. 411 Help says, camshaft position timing over retarded, P0012, Hyundai Accent 08. Can we test for ohms on the solenoid? Absolutely, you can test for ohms on the solenoid, but an ohm test on a solenoid is either going to give you a definite bad answer or maybe it's good. You're going to do more than that. You're going to want to look at some data. Then at that point, you're going to want to probably scope the cam and crank sensors and see their correlation. You're going to have to compare them to a known good. Usually an over-retarded position, though, is going to be something you want to look at on a scope. But if you ohm the solenoid and it ohms bad, then the solenoid's bad. If you ohm it and it's good, it still could be a bad solenoid, but you would want to look and confirm what is the DTC set criteria for that code. What does it take to make that code set? Is that condition always happening? What's causing that condition to happen? That's kind of how we want to do it. Dylan King says, how much is a micropod? I think the micropod by itself with a 1-year Ytech license is about $3,800, and if you want to flash with it, it's going to be an additional $1,600 a year. I might have that backwards. maybe it's 1,800. So either the YTech license or the Tech Authority subscription is $1,600 or $1,800 a year. It's one or the other. I can't remember which way it is. I don't buy yearly for Tech Authority or YTech. I buy on a per day or per event basis, because usually between aftermarket scan tools and stuff, I can do what I need to do. To flash modules, you need Tech Authority access. That's $24.95 for a single day. And then do diagnostics on YTech 2.0. It's $50 for 3 days. But then the micropod itself, when you buy it, it's like $3,800, and that comes with the YTech access for a year. And then if you want to flash stuff, then you have to pay for the Tech Authority access separately. Sorry, I'm getting behind here, I think. Trying to figure out where they come from, because the vehicles we have tested do not have head gasket problems. Oh, okay. Jason Gainey says, had an O2 GMC C7500 with a CAT 3126B. No pedal response code for throttle control. 8-volt ref being pulled down to 2 volts. When the APP sensor was plugged in, bulkhead connector under the dash had corrosion on the pin. Took a while. Yeah, that's a good one. Make sure when you get good ones like that, document them, and they make great case studies. Is the Chinese breakout box on Amazon good? Beginners, cost about $60. I have used that one, Kenneth, and I think it's actually fairly decent. It does have a lot of noise, so I wouldn't try to like flash through it or anything, but it's okay for getting yourself an access point to check for stuff. $1,800 for the micropod alone. Is that the cost of the micropod alone? I've never looked at buying the micropod by itself. I just know that if you go through AESWave.com or any of the vendors and you purchase the micropod with the YTech license and access for a year, it's about $3,800. Right, Peekaboo. I wouldn't think it'd be the water pump impeller. I would think you'd still be seeing some kind of. I mean, we're talking about a combustion event that hits hundreds of psi. It's going to cause some flex and gaskets and stretch and metal, and I mean, if you take one of those pulse sensors and you just tap it with a wrench, you can see it freaks out, right? You could only imagine an explosion at each event is going to cause some kind of ripple in the cooling system. Marcos, can you run diagnostics? Oh, it must be a separate conversation going on there. And then the other job I had today was a 2002 Ford Ranger, no 4x4 control. This is an interesting truck. This is one I've worked on a lot. This is not an automotive shop, actually. What happens is this is a shop they're like residential and commercial electrical, and the owner of this has this '01 Ranger that he loves for putting around the property. They've got this huge property that all their equipment stays on and stuff. And this guy modified with the headrest cut down and upholstered that way so he could wear his cowboy hat while he's driving this little Ranger around the property. It's a 2000 model Ranger came with a 3-liter. It's 4x4, and they put a 2001 model 4.0 in this thing. I kid you not, they spent a lot of time getting a donor vehicle to do a 4.0 swap in a Ranger. Not a 5.0 swap, not a 5.0 Coyote, not a 4.6 swap, but a 4.0 swap. They took the 3.0 out and put the 4.0 in it, and then put the harness and the dash harness and everything from the dash, all the stuff, into it from the 4.001 donor truck. When they did that, they were having problems. They couldn't get it to start, so they got referred to me by a electrical specialty shop here in town that didn't really want to mess with it because, of course, it's a swap vehicle. So they called me out to look at this thing. I let them know ahead of time that this could take countless hours of time, and the guy that owns this shop was just like, "Go for it, man." With the car running, or potentially bend a valve. I'd be hesitant of that, Jason. So anyways, I go out there to check this thing out. No PCM communication. Uh, Power and ground is all good to the PCM. I can scope the PCM. I can scope the communication lines at the PCM and see the rest of the modules communicating. So I called for a PCM, which was from the donor truck. Was the thing. It was at the junkyard, so I'm not sure how it all kind of went down. Anyways, they get a replacement PCM. Immediately get communication. I'm able to program the module to the truck, do the PATS functions, get it starting and running cool. I drive away. They call me back a couple days later and say, hey, can you come back and look at that? No, the 3.0 was not bad. The 3.0 engine was fine. The guy just wanted more power. This is an older gentleman, and his idea was to swap the 4.0 in it. As much as this seems like a humongous waste of money, and it is, that's what he wanted. Anyway, so I come back out to check this thing out, and they put a manual transmission computer in it, is what they provided. I caught the problem almost as soon as I started auto IDing the vehicle and realized it said manual transmission. I was like, oh God. I didn't catch it, but it's okay. I mean, these guys understand that, I didn't supply the part. So they get a replacement module again, we put it in, then it shifts fine. Now we're dealing with a 4x4 today. So I go out, I can talk to the 4x4 module. We got like 15 codes. I got a P1891. It's not able to control the shift motor, so I basically just unplug the 4x4 module, manually power the shift motor, get it into 4 low, the dash indicator works, so I know the shift motor works, the wiring is good to the shift motor, the transfer case works because I got it all lifted up, I put it in gear, 4x4 is going, it says 4 low on the indicator, so the variable potentiometer inside there still functions and gives its position back to the cluster and everything. And then I go back into the 4x4 module and view the live data and mess with the switch, and I can see it commanding all the different positions, and it's grounding each individual switch inside there just like it's supposed to, but the module just can't carry the load out to the shift motor. So I measured current on the shift motor, and it's kind of excessive. I'm used to seeing somewhere between 6 and 11 amps on these shift motors when they initial kick and hold. And I'm seeing like almost 18 amps on this thing, so I called for a shift motor assembly and a 4x4 module to prevent it from happening again. Hey Joe. Anyways, all kinds of fun stuff. So what did I miss here? Pulse sensing I think is going to be big. Also trying to remove some of the coolants on top of the radiator. Which best diagnostic tool for American vehicles? The answer to that is yes, all of them. All the factory tools. Depends what you're trying to do, depends what kind of things you do. If you do a lot of module programming and keys, then Snap-on's out of the question. Most of the aftermarket stuff is too. There's too many variables there for me to give you the best scan tool. If you watch my video, it's over an hour long. It's called What's the Best Scan Tool? It's got like 100,000 views now, which is crazy. That's a huge accomplishment for me. If you watch that, I basically go through a ton of the aftermarket scan tools and end with the fact that none of them do what I need it to do on every car. Some are stronger on certain vehicles than others. Some are better on this year model of this thing, but do absolutely nothing for you on another one. So you are never going to find a single individual scan tool that's going to do everything you need it to do. You're going to need to have multiple aftermarket scan tools or multiple OE scan tools or both, and I have both. I have multiple aftermarket, multiple OE, and I still run into stuff that I can't do. Hey, Ronald. Hey, Sam. You guys should check out Tool Hut USA's channel. Does some pretty sweet stuff. I'm missing some of these questions here. Let me see what happened. What'd I miss? Do the launch tools do OBD1? Andrew, yes, I have used the launch tools on OBD1, but my primary OBD1 tool is the Vitronix MasterTech MTS 3100. X431V, also Varus Edge and Autel Elite. Launch won't do EVAP test on Toyotas. Correct. Hey, Juan. Yeah, so for guys and gals that ask what I'm using, I did a little tour of my truck. I've added tools since then, but currently aftermarket scan tools, I have the Albright's Commander 2018 edition. I have two launch scan tools. I have an Autel MS908. I have the Vitronics MasterTech MTS 3100. And with the Vitronics, I have the domestic package up to 02. And I have the Toyota, Honda, and Nissan packages with the latest OE cards for those, because that was the factory Toyota and Honda tool. I also have some software like on the Bosch Software Pro software with the J-Box, and I've got quite a few OE tools too. I carry subscriptions for Toyota and Honda for newer stuff. I carry subscriptions for GM, GDS2, and Tech to Win, as well as Ford FJDS, which does do diagnostics on 18 and up, and then I don't carry a yearly on Chrysler, but I buy it as needed for that. So I mean, even with all of that stuff, and a Consult 3, not the 3 Plus, but a 3, God, there's a ton of stuff in my truck. Even with all of that stuff, I still run into things I don't have the tools for. So that's to just give you an idea. No, I'm not showing off, Joe. Just letting you guys know how much stuff there is out there aftermarket scan tool wise, and even with all of that, I still run into stuff that I can't do. There's a glitch in the software. I need to do a song and dance to get it to work. Oh, with the text stream. Interesting. Brian says, got a P1639 vehicle ID block corrupted, not programmed, 2012 Ford Edge. Can't find any info on it. P1639. I just had a P606 vid ID block incorrect on a 2008 Escape. There's not going to be much information on it. It's going to tell you to do, if you have a vid block corrupted or not programmed, it's probably not even set in a check engine light, but you should attempt to do a reprogramming or a PMI of that, or try to do it like with an as-built flash with the key off. And if that doesn't fix the vid block ID corrupted, you're probably going to have to replace the module. When are we going to get an in-depth review of the FVDI? I don't know. I mean, it's pretty hard to do in-depth. I don't use it very often, and the stuff I use it for is kind of weird anyways. Yes, X431 does OBD1. Each make has different years capable of doing. Some earlier than others. Attention to detail says GDS Tech to Win, same thing, right? No, Tech to Win is used for up to 14 on select models, but starting in 2010, the GDS2 was the factory scan tool. All the Global A stuff and up is GDS2. The Tech to Win is like an emulator version of the Tech 2. Any suggestions on Toyota lane departure and camera gadgets? Just buy the factory targets and follow the factory procedure. Definitely isn't easy. Yeah, Joe's videos are pretty awesome. Check out Joe's Auto Electric if you haven't. And he'll be at TST also, right? Yeah. While you use OEM pictures to camera, you just print them on the printer? Correct. It's got it inside the TSB. You can print the actual target. Any best good computer for just automatic transmission? I don't know of any of them that are geared towards an automatic transmission, no. Tool Hut USA says as built, correct. Try to do as built. Albright's genuine, yes, expensive, unfortunately. It's online activation version, makes me freaking activated online. I got to log on every 30 days and communicate with the Albright server, or Abritus, or however you guys want to pronounce it, but Albright's. JT says, anyone have any luck with Hantek 1008C? I did have a Hantek 1008C for almost a year, and I used it quite a bit. I still have quite a few captures I captured with it. From my understanding, the software and the hardware have become much better than they used to. So I wouldn't hesitate to get another one at the cost. I think I paid $90 for my Hantek for the whole kit. For the money, a scope is better than no scope. But I can tell you, once you get a Pico, it's going to be really hard to go back. Peekaboo says, we just got a Wi-Fi inspection camera from Amazon. Works awesome, a lot better than the old one we have. The inexpensive, like Chinese made, whatever people want to call them, inspection cameras that connect to your phone have gone leaps and bounds. Now, at the same time, the Oasis, I can't remember the name, Oasis Technical, they're sold by AESWave. Their inspection camera that's got like a button at the top that turns the camera head 90 degrees is unparalleled resolution compared to what I've seen. It's crazy. Joe's All Electric says, Keith, thinking about the Cardac 3 thanks to DeFazio. Yeah, I've got the Cardac 3, Cardac Plus 3. I dig it. I use it every day. Andrew K., I'm curious to what percentage of mechanics are at the level of you and Keith and Sam. Lots of them are at my level. Keith at New Level keeps talking about the AESWave app that makes the Hantek more user-friendly as well. Yeah, using the, I don't know about an Hantek app. I'll have to ask, AESWave app. I'll have to ask him about that. So Albright's is the best. I don't know about Albright's being the best, but it does some really interesting things that other scan tools and other tools do not do. All right, Samuel Bain, we'll meet you there at TST. Try to come find me. Henteks are coming with bugs and hardware problems nowadays. Are they really? I haven't had one in years. The last one I had was the old, like really thin black plastic. The new ones look fairly ruggedized. I have the Wi-Fi Depth Tech with a 16-inch focal plane, $50. Love it. Okay, I'll have to add that to my list to give it a shot. Which Pico? How's the $150 one 2-channel? No, JT, you want to get the Hantek and use it if that's all you can afford currently. But a automotive grade Pico and you want to get a 4-channel is going to run you about $1,000 for the bare scope with no attachments, no connections, no cables or anything. So you're going to be in it about $2,000 deep to get a decent kit if you don't have any of the other accessories. So I had a Hantek 1008C, a Vitronics MTS 5200, Vitronics MasterTech with the 2-channel scope kit, and the Autel Maxi Scope, and then a Tektronix desk unit, all before I bought my Pico. And I had a ton of different attachments for those. So by the time I bought my Pico, I actually didn't buy any, I don't even have Pico cables with mine. I bought a bare Pico unit because of all the other attachments that I had. It made no sense to repurchase the Pico ones if I already had amp clamps, and all the other stuff I had was BNC anyways, because I've never been a Snap-on guy. So all my scope stuff was BNC. So I bought the bare Pico kit. If you're not going to have all that stuff, the 4425 model, then I would get a scope that you can get now. You know, the Hantek will work. A scope is a scope to some level. If you don't have a scope at all, having something is better than nothing. Currently, I use the Uscope from AES, the little 1-channel, $150 1-channel, which is a fantastic quality. And then the Pico 4425. That's what I keep in the truck at all times. Carson asked something about programming that I missed, I guess. I must have missed it. The Vantage Pro is better than the Hantek. If you've got to choose one of those two, go with the Vantage Pro. I have a reliable source to download the driver. For the Hantek or for the Pico? The Pico you just get from Pico Auto. I think it's picoauto.com or Pico Tech Auto or something like that. If it's Hantek, I have no idea. I haven't had a Hantek scope for 4 or 5 years. I must have missed the thing about programming. Sorry, guys. Kuba, anything you touch 2015 and up most likely needs to be calibrated or coded. That's right. It's getting that way for almost everything. Hey, Keith, how are the vendors at TST? How much would you suggest mine to bring? It's my first time. Don't know if I accept credit. So I've never been to TST either. So this is my first time to TST. So I could not tell you what the experience is like. Yeah, if you've already got a Vantage Pro, then no reason to get a Hantek. I mean, really. Save up to get a Pico. Every event has accepted cards so far, Kuba says. Thank you, Kuba. Guys, I've only got a couple more minutes. I'm gonna go have a family dinner, and my wife's dad's gonna be here tomorrow, I think. So I'm gonna have my in-laws over for the weekend, which is good because I like my father-in-law. Wait, Pico, you don't have a Pico scope? That's funny. Sorry. He's got a picture of a Pico waveform on this thing. I would think he has a Pico scope, or at least works somewhere that has one, or has worked somewhere that has one. I mean, there was a period of time where I used a Pico and then I didn't have one. It was a sad, sad time. It's one of those things where, like, if my truck burned down, one of the first things I would order would be a Pico. Like, to replace, like, using the insurance money to replace it. I think the first thing I would order would be my Pico, and then my scan tools. That's, like, the biggest things that I use. Oh, Kuba says she doesn't see a lot of newer vehicles right now. That's why she doesn't do a lot of programming. Right, Pico. I worked places that had a scope before I purchased. Well, I had a scope before I worked anywhere that used one. I was the first one to use a scope most of the place I was at, but I had used a Pico once before, far before I had bought a Pico. So Vantage Boo would sound stupid. That's pretty good. Maxi Elite for $1,900, a good deal. Yes, but you want to make sure if you want support, you better get a U.S. From a U.S. distributor that's an authorized U.S. unit. It has to be sold with a serial number that's registered in the U.S. Otherwise, you might be out when it comes time for that. 411 with the J2534 VCI. Yeah, like I said, you want to pay attention to that. I don't think you can buy just the dongle North Country Auto Diagnostics. I'm very... Andrew, no problem. That's why I like doing it. But, ladies and gentlemen, it has been about 1 hour's worth of Whatcha working on Wednesday on a Thursday. This was our first one. It was late, you know, typical Keith. I'm late. But guys, we will see you next Wednesday. I'm not sure time yet, but you'll see it coming up, and I'll try to get a regular time. Thank you, Kuba. I know it was interesting. That was the point. I don't get much time to just sit here and answer questions. Most of the time I've got an agenda. I've got a bunch of stuff I've got to talk about, events I've got to talk about, and then I got to go do the classes over on Patreon. So Wednesdays will try to be my day where I can just sit here, hang out with you guys, answer questions, talk about tools, that kind of stuff. New Levels video has a link to the Diagun with US support. I think there's a link in my thing that's an Amazon product. It's not US-based support, but I didn't think that the Diagun was a US based tool to get US support, but I don't know. Anyways, they're all there. There's all kinds of stuff.